We have reached an agreement on the Iranian nuclear issue.
The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was meant to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions and reintegrate the country into the global economy. But all of that may just seem like a distant dream as 2019 draws to a close.
The Iranian regime supports terrorism and exports violence, bloodshed, and chaos across the Middle East.
In 2018, the Trump administration walked away from the Iran nuclear deal, citing Tehran's destabilizing influence across the region. It was a controversial move, as Iran until that point had stuck by the historic agreement. This year, the White House engaged in a maximum pressure campaign that's devastated Iran's economy, though its leaders have refused talks unless the U.S. drops recent sanctions.
Any mediation should be how they can come back to the negotiating table that they left.
Going up to April, we had the tightening of the sanctions on Iran. Obviously, that took a lot of Iranian oil off the market.
That move contributed to rising inflation, an 80% collapse in crude oil exports, and an unemployment rate of 12%. Iran no longer benefits from sticking to the nuclear deal. It made several violations in 2019, including resuming the enrichment of uranium. So far, these haven't proved serious enough for other signatories like the UK, Russia, or China to follow in America's footsteps. The EU even launched a border-like system allowing limited trade with Iran while circumventing U.S. sanctions.
The economy is not in good shape. There's a risk that the Iranians may repeat something like the attack on Amqaiq.
But Iran denies responsibility for the September assault on Saudi Aramco, which temporarily wiped out over 5% of global oil supplies, as well as a series of attacks on vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, a key gateway for the world's oil industry. Still, former U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who helped negotiate the nuclear deal, linked these incidents to the U.S. withdrawal.
The escalation is the absolutely foreseeable, and it was foreseen that this is what would happen.
But few could have anticipated the mass protests that broke out in mid-November as Iranian demonstrators took to the streets across the country after the government announced gas prices would increase by up to 200%. Demonstrations morphed into broader anti-government rallies where, according to Reuters, about 1,500 people are believed to have lost their lives in what's been called the bloodiest crackdown on protests since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. While most violence may be over for now, the economic grievances behind the protests remain unsolved and could prove a major headache for the Iranian regime in 2020, especially with elections around the corner. Jim Stenman, Dubai.